I love how I can take a ship that's as short-lived as this one and still manage to make a video that's like an hour long about it. Hello everyone, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about the amazingly adorable Jasmine and Logan from I Didn't Do It, and some of you might be familiar about the history that I have with this show. I was a teenager at the time that it came out, and so I was aware of it, but not really that familiar with it. I wasn't really watching Disney Channel anymore, and so I was in that like angsty stage of feeling like everything that they did that was new sucked now, just because I was basically sad that my childhood had ended. But once I came back to the channel after the release of Descendants and I started making videos, I quickly discovered I Didn't Do It. I actually watched this series before I ever watched Kicking It, which I think is kind of funny now looking back, but I really came around on the show and I just ended up falling in love with it, to the point where Jasmine and Logan were featured on my top 20 best Disney Channel ships of all time video that I did a few years back. Now, for those of you who maybe haven't seen the show before, it follows the main characters of Lindy and Logan, who are twins, and they share the same friend group that consists of Garrett, Delia, and Jasmine. They've all been friends since they were kids, and the first season follows them getting into various wacky situations with an in media res storytelling format, hence the name of the series being I Didn't Do It. However, this concept was abandoned in the second season, which unfortunately was also their last due to the show's untimely cancellation. And with all that being said, let's jump right into chapter 1. So as I explained in the intro, this series follows a friend group that Jasmine and Logan are a part of. And throughout the course of the first few episodes, we get to learn more about the history that they have with one another. In the third, we find out how they first met, when back in 3rd grade, Logan was sat behind Jasmine in class. He grabbed her by her ponytail, and this resulted in her whacking him in the face with her backpack. Lindy then hugs her for this, announcing that she just became her best friend.
You just became my best friend forever.
So I absolutely love this as being the start of their story. I feel like it's very Anne and Gilbert of them, and I like to think that little Logan was teasing her because of a crush he maybe had on her. Not that I'm condoning that behavior, but that is oftentimes the case. I feel like this part also shows that Jasmine is a little bit more of Lindy's friend than she is Logan's, which I think adds a fun best friend's brother element to their story. In episode 4, we get another flashback to 3rd grade, after we learn about them writing letters to their high school selves. Logan writes a list of things that he wants in the future, and while doing so, he tries to copy off of Jasmine's page. She tells him not to, as she has wear a bra on her list, but we later find out that he copied off of her anyway, as wear a bra was still on his list when he received his letter in high school. But that pretty much wraps up all that we learn about their relationship as kids, which is kind of sad because I do wish that we could have learned more about when they were younger. Moving on to present day, we have our first Jogan moment in episode 3. It's a quick one, but basically they're trying to get rid of this new guy who has joined their friend group, and so Logan suggests that the one that should do it should be the one that's really nice, sweet, sincere, and likable. Lindy then tells him not to butter her up, but then he reveals that he was actually talking about Jasmine. So not exactly much, but still a cute moment nonetheless. We then have episode 5, where we get our first real plot between the couple. We start out with Lindy trying to create a healthy school lunch initiative, but it's backfiring as everybody hates the changes that she's making. Meanwhile, Jasmine is trying to figure out what to do for her chemistry project, and so Logan suggests that she create a spray to make Lindy's food taste better. Lindy calls this the dumbest thing he's ever said, but then Jasmine argues that it's actually not. Logan thanks her for the warm fuzzy, and then Jasmine gets excited about this idea. He then asks her to be partners, and the two shake on it. We later see Jasmine and Logan working in the science lab together. He cracks a joke about test tubes, and she admits that this is fun as the two of them never get to hang out. He then notes that they do have chemistry, and she misinterprets this, asking if he really thinks that they have, like, chemistry. He says that he knows that they do, 4th period, and that he's the guy who's always snoring behind her. Jasmine then takes this as a cue for the two of them to get started.
But this is fun, Logan, and we never get to hang out.
Well, we do have chemistry.
You think we have chemistry?
I know we do. 4th period, I'm the guy who's always snoring behind you.
Now, although Logan misses this moment entirely, I do still really like it. I remembered this scene very well from when I watched the show for the first time, and I feel like it's such a great but subtle way to hint at what's to come between the two of them. The following day, the couple shows Lindy their new veggie spray. She is skeptical of it, but Jazz says that it worked out really great. And then she compliments Logan's idea once again. He thanks her for this, calling her partner, and then when they enter the cafeteria, everyone starts cheering for them. We then find out that not only does everybody love their new veggie spray, but they've also been chosen to pitch their idea on a Shark Tank spoof called the Barracuda Boardroom. But things aren't all sunshine and rainbows, as back in the science lab, we see the pair have their first argument. Basically, Logan wants to make their spray blue and Jasmine doesn't agree with this, and Jasmine wants to add Lindy into their project, but Logan doesn't think that she deserves to be, as she was against their idea from the beginning. Jasmine doesn't hear him out on this and decides to make an executive decision to bring Lindy in anyways. This then causes Logan to do the same, adding in a blue liquid to their solution after Jasmine leaves. So I don't love this. Obviously, they're both not listening to one another or considering one another's feelings. And I do wonder if the series didn't get canceled and we did get to see them in a relationship together, how they would have handled disagreements like this one. Because from this example, it's not exactly looking good. But I do think that that is mainly because we don't actually get to see a resolution to this conflict. But that being said, I am getting a little bit ahead of myself. So moving on to the Barracuda Boardroom. During their presentation, Jazz finds out about Logan adding something to their spray after she goes to spray some veggies. She then gets upset with him for doing so, even after she told him not to. But then he retorts that she added Lindy to the group after he told her not to. She then aggravatedly tells him that she can't work with him anymore, and he says that that's her decision. Then everybody who ate the spray proceeds to projectile vomit all over Logan. Logan calls this uncool, but Jazz argues that it's his fault as he changed the formula. He retorts that she doesn't know that for sure, as chemistry isn't an exact science, but she yells back that that's exactly what it is.
That was not cool.
It's your fault. You had to make it blue. This happened because you changed the formula.
You don't know that it was my fault. Chemistry is not an exact science.
It is exactly an exact science.
But then yeah, that's basically it for this episode. So just like I said, it's not exactly the best resolution to this conflict. I guess Logan does get his comeuppance, but Jasmine doesn't really, and you could argue that she's the one who started all of this. And I just find this unfortunate because it is the first argument that we've seen them have. So this would have been a great opportunity to see how they come back from something like this. But instead we get zero resolution and the episode just ends. Luckily though, clearly neither of them hold grudges, as this issue never comes up again. And all of that being said, I don't exactly think is a fault of the ship itself. It's more so to do with the show's format, particularly in the first season. Because of the show's premise being this like, oh no, how did we get here? We're often focusing more on how they ended up in these situations, and not so much what happened after them and how they came back from them. And so that is one good thing that came out of them abandoning this concept in season 2. And also helps you understand why that was the case, as this format really does kind of pigeonhole every episode in the first season. Anyways, the couple then gets into another little kerfuffle in episode 7. This happens while the gang is staying at a ski cabin together, and during their stay, Jasmine has forgotten her makeup at home. While we see her wallowing about this to Delia, Logan enters. He teases her by saying hey to Delia and then asking who the guy she's with is, referring to Jasmine, and then later, Logan is left in charge. At this point, Jasmine has had enough and she decides to go to the closest drugstore to get some makeup. But Logan then tells her that she can't go anywhere on his watch as it's way too dangerous out there. She argues that she doesn't care about how cold it is or how much snow she has to trudge through, she's getting her makeup.
Where do you think you're going?
For makeup, there's a drugstore that's like a 15-mile walk.
Oh, you're not going anywhere, young lady. Not on my watch. It's too dangerous.
I'm getting makeup. I don't care how cold it is out there or how much snow I have to trudge through.
So in regards to the couple, I like how we got to see Logan's protective side here. I know they were kind of going for a more of like dad of the group joke here, but I still appreciated getting to see him being all protective over her. And then in terms of Jasmine's only contribution to this episode is her freaking out about not having any makeup, Yeah, I don't love that as much. It actually reminds me of that one sexist interview with Ariana Grande, where she calls them out for making her choose between not being able to use her phone or not having makeup, as if that's like the hardest choice for any woman to have to make. Not exactly the same thing, but this episode definitely gave me similar vibes to that. We then don't get anything from the couple until episode 14, but this is definitely the one that I was most excited to talk about in regards to the first season. So we begin with Logan saying sup to a girl named Jenna as she passes by. She doesn't really acknowledge his presence though, and then in comes Jasmine. She accuses him of liking her and he pretends like he doesn't, but then he admits that he does. Jasmine argues that she's never even noticed him, and then offers to tell him why that is. She then goes on to say that it's because he's never had a girlfriend before, and she believes that that's why nobody wants to take a chance on him. Now, as much as I love where all of this is going, I feel like I do have to acknowledge a little bit of a continuity error here. As in the episode before this one, Logan had his first girlfriend and it was like this whole thing about her being his first girlfriend. So that kind of took me back a bit while I was watching, but I feel like I can't be too mad about it as it is just like a production versus release order issue. Anyways, Jasmine argues that if he had a girlfriend and then broke up with her, then every girl in school would want him. Logan agrees that that makes sense, but asks where he's going to get a girl to be his first girlfriend. She then tells him that she just so happens to know someone who wants to make their ex jealous. He asks if she's cute and she says stunning. He then waits for her to say who it is, obviously missing the fact that she's referring to herself. She then tells him that it's her and that she'll be his girlfriend. Logan is shocked by this, asking her why she would want to. She says that she doesn't and then asks him which part of this conversation he's not getting. He admits all of it, and so she explains things further. She wants her ex Mike back and he wants Jenna to notice him, and so they should pretend to be a couple. He calls this the most ridiculous plan he's ever heard, but then asks when they start. Just then, Jasmine notices her ex and says right now, quickly getting up and asking him to kiss her. Logan is shocked, saying what? And she pushes further, telling him to get up and kiss her right now. He then stutters over asking if he should go left or right, and she begs him to just kiss her. He says okay and leans in, but then she stops him by putting her hand over his mouth. She then tells him never mind as he just left. She then sits back down and Logan does the same, but a lot slower and more confused over what just happened.
That is the most ridiculous, insane plan I've ever heard. When do we start?
Right now. There's Mike. Kiss me.
What?
Get up and kiss me right now.
Should I go left or right?
Just kiss me.
Okay.
Never mind. He just left.
Now, just what a great scene and what a great start to this episode. As you guys know, I absolutely love a fake dating scenario, and I feel like they executed it really well in this episode. I love Jasmine's carefree attitude about kissing Logan to make her ex jealous, and Logan being oblivious to all of this and his nervousness to kiss her. It made for a great scene and shows their natural chemistry that I feel like they already have. Later that day, Logan says sup to Jenna once again, but she still doesn't reply. He then tells Jasmine that he's a little worried about her believing that they're dating, and that he thinks that they need a bit more of a believable backstory. He then pitches her the idea that since the day that they met, she's been secretly in love with him. She goes to interject, but he shushes her and continues. He says that she's been pining away day after day, always saying the same thing. Logan, you're so charming and adorable. I really think that there's something between us, don't you? And he says all of this while we see a dream sequence as to what this would look like. He continues saying that she would then twirl her hair, bat her eyes, and give a little sigh. But he always gave the same reply, which was, nah, not into it.
You pined away day after day, year after year, always saying the same thing. Logan, you're so charming and so adorable. I really think there's something between us, don't you? And then you twirl your hair, bat your eyes, give that little sigh. Oh. But I always said, nah, not into it.
Now, while Logan isn't exactly done yet, I feel like I just have to interject here. Because how perfect is it that Logan has been putting all of this thought into their backstory, to the point where he's got their dialogue down and everything. I feel like it's just perfect. And also makes me wonder if he really does have some feelings for her that he's just not aware of yet. Because I just don't know how else you would explain him taking all of the time to come up with this backstory. But Jasmine, on the other hand, doesn't exactly see all of this in the same way that I do. And she goes on to yell that that is completely, but he shushes her once again. He then adds to his story that she continued to hound him and he continued to rebuff her. That is until one day when he was in a horrible accident. They then go into another dream sequence as Logan describes himself laying in a hospital bed covered in bandages, his face apparently in a jar in another room. Jasmine then shows up begging him to be her boyfriend, not caring what he looks like. She tells him that she loves him and he says that he's still not into her. But he does feel bad for her, so what the heck. Back in reality, Jazz questions how his face could be in a jar in another room and yet he feels bad for her, and he jokes that he felt so bad that he eventually got used to her. And that is how they wound up being boyfriend and girlfriend, at least according to Logan's imagination. Jasmine then asks if it would have been simpler if they were just really good friends who fell in love, but he argues that she's missing the point as they have to make it believable.
Your face is in a jar and you feel bad for me?
So bad that eventually I get used to you. And that's how we wind up boyfriend and girlfriend. Sweet, huh?
Isn't it simpler if we were just really great friends who fell in love?
You're missing the point. We have to make it believable.
And now, once again, I just love all of this. I love how invested Logan is in this dramatic backstory, and I just found this whole scene and exchange, everything about it, to be so good and quite funny as well. We later see the gang hanging out after school that day. Jasmine refers to Logan as Cookie, and he calls her Cinnamon Buns. Lindy then asks if they're still pretending to date and goes to butt in, but they call her out for always doing so, and so she decides to back off. The next day, Jasmine finds flowers in her locker. She asks where they came from, and Logan tells her that it was just a little gift as he thought that's what boyfriends did. She then goes on to read the card which says sorry for your loss, and he admits that he got them at a funeral as that's what he does. She laughs before concluding that she doesn't care as none of her real boyfriends were this thoughtful. Not even her ex, who she's trying to win back, which is kind of sad if you think about it, but also they're in high school, so I guess it makes sense. She then tells him that he's really sweet, and he jokes that she did stick by him through the whole face in a jar thing. She then tells him that Jenna is lucky as he's going to be a great boyfriend one day, and Logan puts his arm around her as they walk past her ex, Mike. He says hey to her, clearly interested as to what's going on between her and Logan, but she doesn't pay him any mind, giving him a quick hey back.
None of my real boyfriends ever did anything that thoughtful. Not even Mike. You're really sweet.
Well, you did stick with me through the whole my face in a jar thing.
You know what? Jenna's lucky. You're gonna be a great boyfriend one day.
Hey, Jasmine.
Oh, hey, Mike.
Now, this is great as well. For one, Jasmine is starting to see Logan in a different light, to the point where she's basically lost all interest in Mike. But I also love this moment because it highlights how thoughtful Logan is. The fact that he took the time to organize getting flowers for her and putting them in her locker, even though the relationship is fake, again makes me feel like maybe there is a little bit more to his feelings for Jasmine than he realizes. And I also feel like it makes it easy to see how Jasmine fell for him so quickly. The lines really start to blur though that night when we see the couple on a date. Logan laughs over the look on Mike's face when they came in, not knowing if it was red from anger or from sucking on his straw too hard. And Jazz says that she's good either way. She then reminds him of when Jenna saw him pull out her chair for her. He adds that he didn't pull it away when she sat down, and so Jenna must have been thinking that that's the guy for him. She then says that this will drive them crazy as she links their arms together. They cheers to one another all fancy-like, and Jasmine asks if anyone actually talks like that. He says that he wouldn't know as she's his first girlfriend, real or not. Lindy then enters and asks the two of them what they're doing, and Jasmine asks if it's not obvious as they're having a romantic smoothie date to make Mike and Jenna jealous. But then Lindy points out that Mike and Jenna aren't even there anymore. They're both surprised by this, looking around and noticing that they must have left without them realizing. Logan concludes that they'll have to come back here tomorrow night, and Jazz calls this a date.
What are you guys doing?
Isn't it obvious? We're having a romantic smoothie so Mike and Jenna get jealous.
Mike and Jenna aren't even here anymore.
Oh. I guess they left. I didn't even notice.
Neither did I. Guess we'll have to come back here tomorrow night.
It's a date.
Now, I think you guys know what I'm going to say, but obviously I love this as well. The fact that the two of them were having so much fun and getting completely lost in one another, that they didn't even notice that the people that they were putting this show on for had already left. And it just makes me wonder how long ago that was. It again shows just how compatible they are for one another. And then I also just love the look on Jasmine's face when she agrees to go out again tomorrow night. I feel like it was so sweet and definitely a tell that she has now caught feelings. Moving on to school the next day, where we see Jasmine and Logan walk in holding hands. She tells him that he's the best and calls him Sugar Poodle, and he woofs at this nickname. But unfortunately, they came in right when Lindy has had enough and has decided to finally butt in on her friends' lives again. She then tells the couple that if they really like one another, then they should just go for it. They then look awkwardly at one another as she tells them that if they don't, then they should just knock it off. After their friends leave, Jasmine tries to play this off with Logan by asking him if he can believe her, and he laughs before saying that the two of them could never really date. She agrees with him, although it's not exactly convincing. And then Jasmine notices Mike. She asks Logan to carry her books to class, and he tells her that he'll do her one better. He then picks her up bridal style as they walk past her ex. He then tries to talk to Jasmine, but she tells him that she can't as she's busy.
Can you believe her?
Yeah, you and me really dating? No way.
I know. The two of us? Please. Oh, there's Mike. Carry my books to class?
I'll do you one better.
Hey, Jasmine, can I?
No, Mike, I'm busy.
And once again, I feel like this episode is just giving us great moment after great moment. I love how oblivious these two are being in regards to their feelings for one another, to the point where even when they are called out for it, they still continue to deny it. But unfortunately, it is now time for everything to come crashing down. So that night, we see a nervous Jasmine entering Rumble Juice. She asks Logan if they can talk and tells him that she's been thinking a lot about what Lindy said. She then says that it's totally crazy, but they've been spending a lot of time together and it's been a lot of fun. She then adds that they've been friends for forever and goes to say more before Jenna interrupts. She gives Logan a smoothie and asks if he's ready to go. Jasmine is surprised to see her, and Logan reveals that they're going to see a movie. He then asks Jenna to give them a minute, and once she's gone, he tells Jasmine that this is great. Apparently, he ran into Jenna and told her that they broke up, and she was totally into him just like she said she would be. Jasmine tells him that that's great and that she's really happy for him. He thanks her and tells her that he bets Mike will come around soon too. He then goes to ask her what she was going to say before, but she says that it was nothing, telling him to go and have a great time. Then after Logan leaves, we see a sad Jasmine.
I ran into Jenna and told her you and I broke up, and she was totally into me, just like you'd said she'd be.
That's great, Logan. I'm happy for you.
Thanks. I bet Mike comes around soon too.
Yeah, we'll see.
So what were you saying before?
Nothing. It's not important. Go. Have a great time.
Okay. See you later.
So this just breaks my heart. I hate having to watch Jasmine being all ready and nervous to confess her feelings, only to be let down so quickly. And I do think that it is a little bit weird that Logan went forward in telling Jenna all of this before giving Jazz a heads up that like they're no longer going to be fake dating, especially when they had previously agreed to have a date together that night. But to be fair, we don't exactly know the timeline of things. Maybe a couple more days have passed than we know, or maybe he texted her and told her about a change of plans. I don't know. But I do think that they were both acting off of Lindy's advice. So where Jasmine was reflecting on that first part that she said and coming to terms with her feelings for him, I guess Logan was focusing on that second part and felt like they should just knock it off. I just feel like it sucks that it resulted in Jasmine getting hurt like this. And I do wonder what would have happened if Jasmine did get the chance to tell him about her feelings first. I wonder if that would have changed things for him and if he would have realized his feelings for her a bit sooner, but unfortunately we'll never know. Our next Jogan episode comes in episode 17, and although it's not much of a romantic one, I don't exactly mind it as a filler. We begin with Jasmine being chosen to host morning announcements, and on her first day she delivers them very dryly, putting everybody to sleep. At lunch, all of her friends don't have the heart to tell her how boring it was. That is, except for Logan, who tells her that it stunk. And while the delivery of this was a little bit off, I actually really like it that he's the only one who's able to tell her the truth. I feel like it shows that he would be able to do that while in a relationship with her as well, which I do think is a good quality to have in a partner. Although, like I said, he would have to work on that delivery just a little bit. The next day, Jasmine learns that they have given her a co-host to liven up the show, and of course that co-host just happens to be Logan. He is excited to get started, but Jasmine doesn't feel the same, and then she gets upset with their teacher, asking why he would pick him. He explains that he thought that their broadcast was becoming too serious, and that nobody has ever taken Logan seriously. She then threatens to quit if Logan doesn't get removed, but Mr. Kupchak calls her bluff, and we cut to the two of them doing their announcements together. During their broadcast, Logan welcomes everyone to AM Morning. Jasmine argues that AM means morning, and so that title makes no sense. He argues that he came up with it, which she says does make sense. He then introduces a bunch of new segments, leaving her confused, and causing her to lay her head down on the table in defeat. Later that day, Logan tells her that this morning went great. She sarcastically agrees, reminding him of a ridiculous segment that he did, and saying that he really has a future in news. He doesn't pick up on her sarcasm though, and says instead that their future is so bright that they'll need these, as he pulls out some comically large sunglasses. He wants them to wear them on the show, but Jasmine says that she never will. She then gets upset over the whole school laughing at them this morning, and admits that she doesn't enjoy all this goofiness like he does, as she wants to be taken seriously. And so then he tells her that if all of this means that much to her, then he'll tell their teacher that he doesn't want to do it anymore. She is surprised to learn that he would do this for her, but then he tells her that that's just what friends do. She then thanks him for this and for understanding that the whole silly thing just isn't really her.
I want to be taken seriously.
Well, look, if it means that much to you, I guess I can tell Mr. Kupchak I don't want to do it anymore.
Really?
Yeah, sure. That's what friends do.
Thank you. And thanks for understanding that the silly thing just isn't who I am.
So I personally find it interesting that Jasmine is so surprised that Logan would do something like this for her, when I feel like that thoughtfulness in him is what made her fall for him in that previous episode that we talked about. I thought that it was maybe another production versus release order issue, but it's not. This one was produced after the fake dating one. But to be fair, I guess they are still somewhat getting to know one another, as while they are in the same friend group, Jasmine said very early on in the season that they never really spent much time together until now. So I guess it does make sense that she is still kind of learning more about him. Anyways, things then take a turn as the couple walks into the cafeteria. They receive a standing ovation from their peers, and Jazz is confused, asking what all of this is about. Logan excitedly announces that these are their fans, and he goes on to thank them all before breaking the news that AM Morning is changing. He says that from now on, Jasmine is going to be, but then she cuts in, grabbing the giant sunglasses and calling herself Jazzy Jazz Kang. She then refers to all of them as party people and tells them to let the thunderstorm begin, as she throws a cup of water in her face and turns the little wipers in her glasses on. Logan then puts on his glasses and grabs a cup of water as well, but then he pours it on Jasmine instead of himself. Now, I really like this moment, and although Jasmine is more so acting off of this positive reinforcement that she's received from her peers, I also like to think that part of this is Logan's influence as well. I feel like in a way he's helping her see that she doesn't always have to be so uptight, and I think that that's kind of nice. I also think that we should note that this is the second time they have now received applause from their peers, and I wonder if this was a way of them hinting at the fans' reception of them. Maybe that's a reach, I don't know, but nonetheless, I will always enjoy this scene and continue to applaud Logan and Jasmine as well. The next day, we see that Jasmine has completely embraced the silliness and has joined in on all of Logan's goofy segments. However, we quickly come to see that she has maybe embraced it a little bit too much, as she doesn't allow Logan to deliver any of the actual announcements. Afterwards, he tells her that they have to dial it back a little bit, but she argues that their fans want that light infotainment. He then retorts that without info, they're just tainment, but Jasmine isn't very receptive to this, as she just tells him to relax and that they're a huge hit. The following day, Delia shows up to their broadcast as their first guest. And before they get started, Mr. Kupchak tells Logan that they have to announce something really important first thing. The show then begins, and Jasmine intros Delia as their first guest. Logan tries to interject with his important announcement, but Jasmine calls this boring and crumples up the paper that he'd been given. We then come to find out just how important this announcement was, as the pipe above them bursts and they get covered in water. Delia is convinced that it's the end of the world, but Mr. Kupchak comes in announcing that it's not, but it is the end of AM Morning. Afterwards, Jasmine asks how that happened, and Logan yells that the pipes were rusted, and she didn't let him read the one announcement that he was given. In the end, they end up getting replaced by a virtual host, and Jasmine asks if they know what the worst part of all of this is. Logan asks if it's the fact that she compromised her integrity and made a fool of herself, all for the adulation of a few bored homeroom students. She retorts that she was going to say that it was being covered in toilet water, but that works too. So in comparison to the conflict that they had in the Shark Tank episode, I feel like this one's conclusion is slightly better. While we don't get the resolution I would have wanted, we do get this little scene. And while it definitely wasn't perfect, we at least got to see Jasmine owning up to her mistake. And again, I definitely feel like the format of this series is to blame for this. And I understand that these two situations are a bit hard to compare, as this time around it was more so just Jasmine who took things too far. And I do believe that she was able to see that in the end. Anyways, moving on to episode 18, which is the dance competition one. So a bit of a big one for us fans of the ship. We begin with Jasmine signing up for a dance competition to stick it to her sucky ex-boyfriend, and she then manipulates Garrett into being her dance partner. Later, we see them rehearsing together, and when Garrett starts to bother her, she admits that she should have just asked Logan to be her partner instead. Garrett then asks why she didn't, and she explains that she was worried that if she asked him, then people would start to think that it's a thing. Garrett asks if people will think it's a thing if she dances with him, and she snorts before saying no. We then make it to the dance contest, where Garrett ends up getting accidentally trapped in the corn maze, and this causes Jazz to have to go up on stage alone. In an attempt to save herself, she tries to dance with a scarecrow, but this just results in everyone laughing and booing her, which is a little bit ridiculous in my opinion. Defeated, Jasmine goes to walk off stage, but then Logan comes to her rescue. He grabs her hand and asks her to dance, and she calls him an angel, which is funny because he is dressed as an angel. Which I think I failed to mention, but this is like the fall Halloween episode. So she asks him if he's sure about this, as he doesn't know the moves, but he tells her that it's okay, as apparently he won a disco contest when he was 8. He then tells her to just follow his lead, and they pull off some stellar dance moves. Then mid-dance, Jasmine gushes over how good he is on the dance floor, and he responds that it's easy when you have a good partner. They then continue their killer routine, which ends with Jasmine on his knee, and in the end, they do win the competition.
You're so great on the dance floor.
It's easy when you have a good partner.
And now, I of course loved every second of this. This is without a doubt one of the most memorable moments from season 1 for me. Whenever I think about this first season, this episode always sticks out in my mind, which is funny because I remembered this episode as being more about them, when in reality it's not. It's really just this one moment where he comes to her rescue, but it really is just one of my favorites. We then end the episode with Jasmine and Logan in Rumble Juice. Jasmine is going over who everybody manipulated, and then she admits that she just has one question, asking who manipulated him into dancing with her. He tells her nobody and that he just wanted to do it. She thanks him and smiles as he gets up to get a smoothie. After he's gone, a girl behind her calls Logan cute and asks if he's her boyfriend. Jasmine earnestly says, "I wish," right as Garrett walks in, shocked at what he just overheard. But he then runs out before Jasmine can notice him behind her.
I just have one question. Who manipulated you into dancing with me?
Nobody. I just wanted to do it.
Thank you.
He's cute. Is that your boyfriend?
I wish.
Now just talk about a great way to end this first season. And while this isn't the finale, I almost feel like it should have been, ending with Jasmine finally admitting her feelings for Logan out loud, and with one of their friends finding out. Like, it's just so good. I love Garrett's little gasp before he runs out. And like, was it a little weird for this random girl to turn around and comment on Logan? Sure, but I love what it resulted in, and so I'm not complaining. But as I said, this unfortunately isn't the finale, and we do still have one more episode to talk about before we can move on to season 2. And it's not exactly the best episode, but it exists, and so I feel like we have to talk about it. So in episode 19, Logan comes into the cafeteria with a stack of books. He drops them on the table beside Jasmine, and she asks when he became such a studio. But he says that he's not, and that he's a making money-o. He apparently has 50 paying customers, and now thanks to Lindy, no locker to store his merchandise in. Jasmine asks if he wants her to be encouraging or to remind him that none of his businesses ever work. And sarcastically, Logan retorts that it sounds like the ship has sailed on encouragement. He then pretends that he doesn't need her help, before caving and admitting that he does, asking if they can share her locker. She says no, but does give him the idea of joining the marching band, as apparently they get separate lockers to store their instruments in, which are twice as big as the ones that they have. And so Logan decides to try out for the marching band. Later on, we see that he has made the band and is playing the triangle, but of course he's not exactly committed to this role. This causes him to almost get kicked out, and so he asks what he has to do to stay in. We then come to find out that the head of the marching band kind of has a thing for Jasmine, so if he can get him a date with her, then he can stay in the band. Meanwhile, Jasmine has been working with Delia on this muffin business, but she needs a place to store her muffins overnight, and so logically Logan offers up his band locker. She can't believe that he's doing something this generous without there being anything in it for him, but then he reveals that there actually is something in it for him, that is, if she's open to the idea of dating. She smiles at this, telling him to go on as she thinks she knows where this is going, but then he reveals that he actually needs her to go out with the head of the marching band. Now upset, she asks if he's referring to Ross, the oboe player, who apparently stares at her long enough for it to be creepy. But Logan argues that it's actually Ross, the oboe player, who she's going out with tomorrow night. She then asks how he could suggest something so selfish and offensive, but he argues that he can because he needs something. She then goes over everything, that he scammed his way into a giant locker that she told him about, and now when she needs to use it, he makes her go out with Ross. But then Logan just concludes that they are talking about the same guy. This causes Jasmine to smush one of her muffins in his face before storming off.
So you scam your way into a giant locker that I told you about.
Yep.
And when I need to use it, you make me go on a date with Ross?
Uh-huh.
The same Ross who took up oboe because it's the only thing he's ever gonna kiss?
We are talking about the same guy.
So this scene is a hard one because I feel like on the surface it makes Logan look really bad. But then I feel like in the show it's definitely more played for comedy, which is why it works so well. But it is complicated because I do feel like Jasmine's feelings for him kind of heightened this whole situation. He got her hopes up thinking that he was going to be the one to ask her out, but then it turns out that he already set up a date for her with somebody else who she finds to be a total creep. So I can only imagine how infuriating that combination of things must have made her feel. Also, I haven't exactly mentioned this yet as it hasn't really been relevant until now, but Logan is kind of like the dumb character of the series. And while I have mixed feelings about that, I do feel like this scene is one where that was used correctly. Obviously, we already know that Logan is a very caring and thoughtful friend, but he can also be a little bit oblivious at times. That being said though, he does also acknowledge in this scene that he's doing all of this for his own gain. So maybe he is a bit more aware than he lets on. But one thing we do know about Jasmine is that she's very smart and resourceful. And so she decides to use this information to her advantage. The following day, we see that Logan isn't able to get into his locker at band practice. He asks Ross what's going on, and he reveals that they found a new triangle player, which of course we then come to find out is Jasmine. Logan is shocked by this, asking how she could play him, but she argues that she didn't. She just told Ross how he played him, and then tried to play her, and now they're playing him. She then opens up her new locker to show that it's full of muffins. Logan asks where all of his stuff is, and she explains that she told the janitor that it's trash, and so it's in the dumpster behind the school. He then runs off to get his stuff, and then the episode ends with her and Delia throwing out their muffins in the dumpster and landing on top of him. So as I said in the beginning, this isn't exactly my favorite Jogan episode. I guess it made for a fine filler one, but it really isn't anything to write home about, besides I guess the fact that it did give us some more screen time between the couple. Although I will admit that I wish that every filler episode didn't include them yelling at each other over something. But with all that being said, we have now made it to season 2, which as I mentioned in the beginning of this video came with a lot of changes. First of all, they decided to abandon the whole how did we get here format, and I also heard that their writing staff completely changed over with this new season, which I think explains a lot of the changes. Luckily though, one thing that didn't change was their plans for Logan and Jasmine. So we begin episode 1 with the girls having a slumber party together. Lindy asks Jasmine if she's crushing on anyone. Then as if on cue, Logan enters. This causes Delia to say his name and Jazz gets defensive, saying that she doesn't like Logan. She then asks why he would say say that, and Delia explains that he just walked in. Jasmine then scoffs, giving Lindy a friendly shove before concluding that she knew that. After Logan leaves, Jasmine harps on her slip-up even more, telling her friends that that was funny and rambling on about them thinking that she liked Logan, when really he had just walked in the room. Unfortunately, the girls don't question her further on this though, and Delia just chalks up her weird behavior as being due to the cleansing strip that she has on.
That's funny.
What was funny?
You thought I was crushing on Logan, but he was just walking in the room behind me, and you were just saying his name like you would when somebody walks into a room.
I think Jasmine's cleansing strip took out a couple of brain cells.
So I absolutely love that we're starting off the season this way. While this episode isn't necessarily about them, this one moment solidifies them as being a real focus for this season. And I absolutely love Jasmine's nervous rambling after thinking that she's been caught. It almost comes across like she's begging to be questioned or called out for her crush on Logan, and I'm honestly surprised that Lindy and Delia don't pick up on this. Or maybe they did and just chose not to say anything. Who knows? Moving on to episode 3, where we don't get much, but there is this one moment where we get to see Logan give her some advice. Basically, Delia and Jasmine have gotten into a little bit of a fight over a fashion assignment, and later we see Jasmine upset about this outside of Rumble Juice. Logan comes over and asks her if she's okay, and she tells him about what happened. He then tries to make her feel better by relating to her situation, even though he admits that he's never fought with his friends over fashion before. Jasmine then explains that their teacher chose Delia's design over hers and she got mad, and this caused her to say some things that weren't very nice. Logan then notes that it sounds like she's more mad at herself than at Delia, and this helps her realize that he's right. He is shocked that she thinks so, as he says that that was a total guess, and then he suggests that she apologize. She tells him that that's a really great idea, and then he is shocked by this once again. And while this isn't exactly much of a romantic moment, I do really enjoy the addition of it. As you guys know, I just love when they're able to sprinkle in little moments like these throughout the series, and I feel like this is what I wish that we could have gotten in those episodes where they were fighting. I just wanted to see a genuine conversation like this one in the end, and so it was nice that we finally got that here. And then I also feel like this one in particular also shows that Logan would make a good confidant for her if they ever did end up in a relationship. But now it is time for episode 6, where practically everything changes. First of all, we begin with the reveal that Logan is dating somebody new. This comes after Delia asks him and Jasmine to be in a scene that she wrote for her drama class. Logan says that he can't, as all of his free time has been taken up by his new girlfriend. He then asks if he's told them about her yet, and Delia says that they did, that they got his text and his email, and Jasmine adds that they also saw his t-shirt which read, "I got a girlfriend, ask me how." He then asks them if they want to know how, and they both say no in unison. Jasmine then tells Delia that she can't be in her scene either as she's crazy busy, and so she ends up asking Lindy and Garrett instead. The next day at school, we see Logan enter with his new girlfriend, who I personally think looks an awful lot like Jenna, but maybe that's just me. He then tells Jasmine and Garrett to wish them a congratulations as today is their 2-week anniversary. Erin, Logan's new girlfriend, then admits that it feels like it was just last week that they were celebrating their 1-week anniversary, and Garrett sarcastically adds that time is weird like that. Jasmine then congratulates them, saying that she's happy for them, and then Logan decides to ask Erin to move into his locker. Garrett is surprised by this, suggesting that maybe they're moving too fast, and Jasmine agrees with this, adding that they've only been together for 2 weeks, which is only 14 days. Logan argues that sometimes you just know, and that when it's right, it's right. Jasmine calls this sweet, and then he tells her that he hopes one day she can experience just a fraction of what they have.
You know, sometimes you just know. I mean, when it's right, it's right.
That's sweet.
Oh, Jazz, I hope someday you can experience even just a fraction of what we have.
What about me?
Oh, yeah, good luck to you too.
So a bit of a heartbreaking moment for Jasmine, but I will say that she does hide it very well. Her wishing them congrats and saying that she's happy for them felt really genuine, and maybe that's because she is. I mean, I'm sure she still wants the best for Logan, even if it's not with her, or maybe she just is really good at hiding her true feelings. But what I also found interesting was how he focuses on wanting the same for Jasmine and not so much for Garrett. Again, I just feel like this shows how much he cares about her in particular, although it was probably more so just him thinking thinking that Garrett wouldn't even have a chance in that department. But speaking of Garrett, I am very happy that all of this happens with him present because of what comes next. So after the couple leaves, Garrett asks Jasmine if she's okay. She then tries to mask her feelings again, saying that she's great, but then she slams her locker door shut as she goes to leave. This causes Garrett to stop her and tell her that he knows why she's upset, and that she doesn't have to pretend anymore as he knows that she likes Logan. Jazz immediately gets defensive, saying that she doesn't, and asks him why he would say that, and then he reveals that a couple months ago he heard her say it, obviously referring to the moment from the previous season where he overheard her in Rumble Juice. Jasmine then grabs him by his backpack and slams him against the locker. She then yells in his face, asking who else knows about this. He then frantically says nobody and that he didn't tell anyone. She then threatens that if he does, then he'll end up in pieces, as she would be so embarrassed if he found out, especially now that he has a girlfriend. He promises not to tell anyone and then asks when she started liking him. She then confesses that it was last year when they were pretending to be a couple, and says that the longer that they pretended, the less it felt like pretending.
Seriously, I would be so embarrassed if Logan found out, especially now that he's a girlfriend.
I promise I won't tell anyone.
Good.
When did you start liking him?
Remember last year when Logan and I were pretending to be a couple? Well, the longer we pretended, the less it felt like pretending.
So although this is all just kind of like stuff we already know, it is still just so great to hear it all again. While it may not feel like it's been that long in this summary format, in the show it's actually been quite some time since Garrett found out about Jasmine's feelings. And then I feel like the payoff here was just executed perfectly. I really couldn't have asked for a better moment. They remind us of the moment where he overheard, and then also confirm where Jasmine's feelings stemmed from and that they're still there, which just makes me respect her even more so for how she handled herself earlier with Aaron. I feel like the way that Jasmine is able to put her feelings aside and still be happy for Logan is very mature of her, and just makes me feel for how hard it must be for her to have to watch him be happy with somebody else. But she might not have to worry about that for much longer, as after school that day we see Jasmine go over to their house. She asks Logan where Lindy is and he tells her that she'll be home soon. She then asks how his anniversary went and he gushes over it being perfect. Jasmine then again pretends to not be hurt by this, saying instead that she's glad that he had fun. He then tells her that it's pretty great to be a part of a couple, and then calls Aaron his first real girlfriend. And I'm just like, I have to assume that that stung a bit for Jasmine to hear. Nonetheless, she fakes a yay before they are interrupted by Logan's phone. And then suddenly he is hurt as he receives a very abrupt breakup text from Aaron. Jasmine asks why she broke up with him and he assumes that it was because he let her move into her locker. She argues that he doesn't know that, but he feels as though he does as it was too soon. She apologizes to him and then brings him in for a hug, and then we see her smile during it.
Probably because I let her move into my locker.
Hey, you don't know that.
Yes, I do. It was too soon, okay? I flew too close to the sun, Jazz. Too close to the sun.
Oh, Logan, I'm so sorry. Come here.
This then brings us to the rehearsals for Delia's scene, and Lindy asks Garrett if he's heard the news about Logan. He asks if Jasmine knows yet, and she reveals that she was the one who told her, and then Garrett asks if she said anything else, which causes Lindy to become a bit confused. And she asks what else she would say. This causes Garrett to get a bit flustered as he says nothing, but now Lindy is suspicious, asking him what it is, as she can apparently tell when he's hiding something. Garrett then tries to change the subject, but she keeps pushing. He then caves and admits that Jasmine likes Logan. Lindy is shocked by this and can't believe that Jasmine didn't tell her, as she's her best friend. But honestly, I'm kind of surprised that she didn't know this already. I mean, she was the one who called them out in the fake dating episode for actually liking one another, and I feel like Jasmine hasn't exactly been subtle in regards to her crush. But at the same time, I can also understand that maybe she's more so upset about the fact that she didn't tell her, as like she said, they are best friends. Anyways, Garrett reassures her that she didn't tell him either, he just heard her say it. He then tells her that she can't tell anyone else either. And then, as if on cue, Delia enters. She asks what's going on, and Lindy tries to lie, saying that they had a breakthrough with the scene, but then Delia surprises them by saying that for a minute she thought that they were talking about Jasmine liking Logan. They ask how she found out, and she says that she's a writer and that writers can see into people's souls, but then she adds that she also heard them from the hallway. She then reveals her shock at this news, and then Garrett reminds her that it's supposed to be a secret, and so they can't tell Jasmine that they know. But Lindy argues that she's their best friend, and so they have to tell her. Garrett is still unsure though, as he doesn't want her to find out that he blabbed as she pushed him up against a locker. Delia then tells him not to be a coward before she tells Lindy that she should be the one to do it. And then this brings us to our Jasmine intervention. We see the four of them at Rumble Juice, and Jazz asks what they wanted to tell her, and Lindy decides to just rip the band-aid off, saying outright that they know that she likes Logan. Jasmine then immediately gets upset with Garrett. He argues that he couldn't help it as Lindy threatened him. The girls then beg her not to hurt him, and she backs off. Lindy then tells her that she doesn't have to hide this from them, saying that liking someone is a good thing even if it is her brother. She then tries to turn her off of him a little bit by saying that he does his homework on the toilet, but then Jasmine just finds the fact that he's actually doing his homework now as sweet. Lindy then tries to encourage her to tell Logan how she feels, adding that the sooner the better, as keeping secrets is no good. But then Jasmine argues that she can't just go up to him and tell him that she likes him, asking what would happen if he didn't like her back. This then brings Lindy to ask if she wants her to talk to him for her to find out how he feels. Jasmine decides that that might be okay, but says that she can't just come right out and say that she likes him. Delia agrees with this, saying that she's going to have to be subtle about it, but Lindy tells them not to worry as Logan isn't exactly the brightest. Delia then asks where he is anyway, and Garrett reveals that he told him that he was going on a long, sad walk by the lake. He then notes that this breakup seems to have hit him pretty hard, and Jasmine celebrates this.
You just have to be subtle.
Oh, I wouldn't worry about subtle, especially with a guy who pronounces it subtle.
Yeah, where is Logan anyway?
He said he was going on a long, sad walk by the lake. This breakup's hit him pretty hard.
Isn't that great?
Now, I have to admit that I do really like all of this. I love that Jasmine is no longer alone in her feelings, and then I also just love how incredibly supportive her friends are in regards to this. They're not worried about the dynamic of their friend group changing, but instead they're incredibly supportive, which I feel like is just so healthy. I also just love the trope of a whole friend group knowing about a crush except for the person that it's on, and so I feel like we do get a little bit of that here as well. But now it is time for Lindy's talk with Logan. So she finds him lying face down on the couch and asks him how he's doing. He then lets out a loud groan, which I feel like speaks for itself. She then tells him that she knows that he feels down right now, but reassures him that there are other girls out there. He argues that there aren't any for him and that him and Aaron had big plans for their 3rd week anniversary, but then she encourages him to lean on his friends at times like these. Like for example, yesterday when after he got dumped and he was leaning on, whose shoulder was that again? And then he tells her that it was Jasmine. Lindy then calls her a terrific person, and Logan agrees that he has some great friends, but then Lindy argues that he shouldn't just lump them all together and that they should instead focus on one at a time, bringing it back to Jasmine. But Logan is still not catching what she's putting down, and so she decides to change her approach. She then tells him that there's this guy she knows that she sees as a friend, but lately she's starting to wonder if they could be more than that, asking him if he thinks that it's possible for friends to become more than friends. But Logan is still oblivious as to what Lindy is trying to accomplish here and just calls her unbelievable for only wanting to talk about herself while he's heartbroken. She then yells at him to just answer the question, and he concludes that he knows what's going on here. But he actually doesn't, as he then just accuses her of liking Garrett. So although this scene doesn't exactly get us anywhere, I still really enjoyed it. I found it to be really funny, and it also does a great job of showcasing Logan's heartbreak to us firsthand. But speaking of his heartbreak, it is now time for some more whiplash in that department. So the following day, Jasmine runs into Aaron at Logan's locker. She asks if she's moving out and apologizes as she says that breakups are hard. But then Aaron reveals that she's actually moving back in as they got back together. Jasmine is shocked and fakely says that that's great before asking how, and Aaron explains that she realized that they were meant to be together. Jasmine then attempts to wish her well, hoping that they are happier together, although the way that she delivers this does not feel very genuine. And now I understand that Jasmine is going through a lot in this moment, and that it is pretty typical for high school relationships to be quite on again, off again. But I do kind of wish that she could have stuck it to Aaron a little bit more here, especially because we just saw firsthand just like how heartbroken Logan is over all of this. And it just kind of bugs me that Aaron is so like blissfully unaware of the pain that she caused him. So if Jasmine could have been the one to tell her that, I think that that would have been perfect, but also could have made for maybe too much of an intense scene for a sitcom. But with all of that being said, it is now time for the big moment. So after Delia's play, Jasmine runs in. in. She then goes up to who she thinks is Garrett in his tree costume, and she tells him that if he sees Lindy to tell her not to talk to Logan, as now that he's gotten back together with Aaron, she would die if he found out that she liked him. She then thanks him and runs off. After she's gone, we then get the reveal that it was actually Logan in the costume and not Garrett, as he takes his mask off and is shocked.
Oh, Garrett! If you see Lindy, tell her not to talk to Logan. Now that he got back together with Aaron, I would die if he found out I liked him. Thanks.
Now, this moment still gives me chills no matter how many times I've watched it. I love how after all of this time and all of this buildup of Jasmine desperately trying to keep this all a secret, and how she even tells Lindy not to just come out and say it. And then in the end, she's actually the one who does just come out and say it. It's ironic and also one of the most perfect moments from the series, in my opinion. Moving on, we then see Logan and Lindy at Rumble Juice. Logan is telling her what happened and says that it's so weird, the way that she just walked right up to him and told him directly to his face. He then admits that he can't believe that Jasmine likes him like that. She then asks that now that he knows that she does, how he feels about her. He says that Jasmine is great, but that he's just never thought of her like that before. And then there's also the fact that he does already have a girlfriend. She then reminds him not to tell Jasmine that he knows and says that he has to keep it a secret, but then he finds out that Delia and Garrett already know, which causes him to feel like it's not much of a secret. Nonetheless, she still reminds him not to tell anyone. And then in comes Jasmine. She tells Logan that she heard that him and Aaron got back together and calls this great. He thanks her and then tells him that he heard, but then he looks over to Lindy and then says nothing. Aaron then comes in and calls for Logan, and then he leaves with her. But before he does, he turns to look at Jasmine. Now alone, Lindy asks her if she's okay, and she admits that she's not, but says that she will be.
You okay, Jazz? No, but I will be.
Now, I feel like this is a big moment, and for a couple of reasons. First of all, this is when the tables officially start to turn. Logan has just found out about Jasmine's feelings, which means he's starting to see her differently, and I think that this is just the start of him realizing his feelings for her. But then I also just love that they demonstrated this through a look-back moment. It reminds me of Andy Mack and how they would say that if a person looks back to you as they're leaving, then it means that they have feelings for you, which is honestly something that has really stuck with me over the years. But then I also think that this moment is just so important because it's the first time where Jasmine really drops her facade. She is no longer pretending like she's okay and pretending like all of this isn't affecting her. And we see this when she finally tells Lindy that she's not okay and lets her comfort her, which I honestly felt like was long overdue. But now that things have officially changed a bit in regards to where Logan stands, it is time for our second and unfortunately final chapter. Moving on to episode 9, we see Logan and Aaron enter Rumble Juice, and Jasmine distracts herself on her phone. Then while the couple is going on about Logan taking her dress shopping for the upcoming dance, Jasmine excuses herself to get a smoothie, which Logan seems to notice. Later, Jazz breaks the news to Lindy that she's not going to the dance. This is because she doesn't have a date, and she's not interested in seeing Logan and Aaron together at a romantic dance, which I personally feel like is very valid, but Lindy convinces her to go anyway. A few days later, Logan comes in while Jazz and Lindy are prepping for the dance. He sighs over the fact that him and Aaron have been dress shopping for the past 3 days straight, and he explains that she made him get a new suit, but then the one that he got was too matchy-matchy, and so then he had to get another one. Jasmine then admits that she liked his old blue suit as she felt like it brought out his eyes. He agrees, saying that this new one doesn't do that at all, and if anything, it pushes them back in. She then admits that if she had a boyfriend, she would want him to be happy in whatever he's wearing, and he says that he wishes that Aaron felt that way.
I liked your old suit, the blue one. It brings out your eyes.
I know. This new suit doesn't bring out my eyes. If anything, it pushes them back in.
If I had a boyfriend, I think I'd just want him to be happy with whatever he was wearing.
I wish Aaron felt like that.
Well, if I had a boyfriend, he'd help me finish painting this banner.
So I kind of have mixed feelings about this scene. It almost gives me like, ugh, women are so annoying kind of vibes. And then it's like Jasmine's not like other girls because she would just want him to be happy in whatever he's wearing. Which, like, obviously to an extent I agree with. I mean, just speaking for myself, my fiance isn't exactly a fashion icon. He would wear hoodies and sweatpants to every occasion if he could. But unfortunately, that isn't always the proper attire. And so sometimes I do have to encourage him to wear a collared shirt. Does that make me a naggy, annoying girlfriend? I don't think so, but maybe it does. And then I also feel like sometimes before getting into a relationship, girls can be like, oh, I would never act like that. But then once they get in their shoes, they realize why they did act like that. And I'm not saying I agree with Jasmine or Aaron in this situation. I think Aaron is overcompensating, and I think Jasmine is being a bit of a pick-me. And I do think that it is important for your partner to be comfortable in whatever they're wearing, but I guess I'm just trying to say that there are exceptions to that as well. And maybe I was just a bit triggered. I don't know. No, I don't think that was it. Jasmine just bugged me. And that's just how it be sometimes. Anyways, moving on to the dance, where we see Aaron and Logan sharing their shopping endeavors with Garrett. After Aaron leaves, he asks Logan what's up with that and who cares if they match or not. Logan then admits that he doesn't get it either and notes that Jasmine thought that his old suit would have been fine, adding that she should know as she's so smart about fashion. And now this bugged me as well. First of all, I don't like how comfortable Garrett is with talking about Aaron like that behind her back, especially to her boyfriend. And then I also don't like how Logan doesn't stand up for her. I feel like it's one thing to be annoyed with your partner's actions, but I still feel like he should have been able to at least see where she's coming from and defend her to Garrett in some way. Just like a simple, like, yeah, I don't get it either, but it's important to her would have been enough for me. I understand that they're not the main ship of the series and that they're trying to make Jasmine look like the better choice, so that his breakup with Aaron makes more sense. But all of this just like gives me cheating vibes in a way. And I wish that we could have seen them build Jasmine up without them tearing Aaron down. Especially when she was already kind of down in my mind with the way that she treated Logan previously. So I just don't think that all of this was that necessary. But again, I don't really know why I'm harping on this so much because like this isn't even the ship we're supposed to be rooting for or talking about. It's just this whole everything about this bugged me. Anyways, Jasmine then comes over and Logan is caught off guard, and he tells her that she looks amazing. She thanks him and notes his new suit. He then tells her that he should have taken her advice, but she tells him that he still looks nice. He then thanks her and tells her again that she looks amazing. Garrett then chimes in, reminding him that he already said that. Jasmine then excuses him by saying that he was just being sweet before leaving.
Wow, Jazz, you look amazing.
Thanks. So that's the new suit, huh?
Oh yeah, I should have taken your advice.
You still look nice.
Thanks. And you look amazing.
You already said that.
He's just being sweet. I'll see you guys later.
So I like this a little bit better. Obviously, Logan is now coming to terms with his feelings for Jasmine, and I don't really think he knows how to act. And so now it's just kind of manifesting in this like awkward way, which I do think is kind of sweet. I also think it's worth noting that Jasmine is wearing a blue dress, as his old suit that she wanted him to wear was blue. And so if he would have worn that, then they would have been matching. After Jazz leaves, Logan asks Garrett what he was talking about before. He then reminds him that he was talking about Jasmine and then asks if something's going on. He says yes and then no, and then Garrett concludes that at least someone there is more uncomfortable than he is. Meanwhile, Lindy introduces Jasmine to this new guy called Owen. She tells the two of them to dance, and Owen is more than happy to, causing Jasmine to smile at him. Later, Logan notices Jasmine and Owen dancing together and asks Aaron who that guy is. She tells him that she doesn't know, but notes that they don't match, referring to their outfits. Logan agrees with her, but there seems to be more to his words, as he admits that it doesn't look right to him either.
Hey, who's that guy dancing with Jasmine?
I don't know.
But they don't match.
Yeah, doesn't look right to me either.
So I remember absolutely loving this moment when I watched the show, but then after going over this whole episode, I'm just not really too sure how I feel about it now. It just kind of gives me that vibe of like, if you're unhappy in your relationship and you want to be with somebody else, then just end that relationship, which thankfully does come next, which I do think makes all of this a lot better. But then it also just kind of gives me that feeling of like he's only interested in her now that he sees her happy with somebody else, which like I know isn't necessarily the case because of what we've seen already. lately, but I just can't help but feel that way while I'm watching this scene. Anyways, just like I hinted at, the next day, Logan tells Lindy that he broke up with Erin. He tells her that things just got weird and that it was so important to her that they matched, when ironically, he doesn't think that they actually did. He continues saying that he told her that it wasn't working and that she's a really good person who deserves to find someone special. He then adds that it was the hardest text that he's ever written. And now, obviously, breaking up with somebody over text isn't exactly the best way to do it, but they are teenagers and she did do the exact same thing to him, and so I don't think it's that big of a deal. He then confesses that there's actually another reason too as to why he did it, and says that he's been thinking about Jasmine a lot. And then when he saw that other guy dancing with her, he realized that he wanted to be the one dancing with her. He even finishes by saying that he wants to ask her out.
There's another reason I broke up with her. I've been thinking about Jasmine a lot.
Hello.
When I saw that guy slow dancing with Jazz at the dance, I realized I wanted to be the one dancing with her. I'm gonna ask her out.
Wow, I can't believe this is finally gonna happen.
So now I feel like we're back on the right track. I found it to be very mature of him to end things with Erin so quickly, and it's definitely refreshing to see, as I feel like that's not usually the way that things go. I also love how he doesn't beat around the bush and goes right to wanting to ask Jazz out. I feel like this ending really redeemed the episode for me, and it does make what's to come that much more unfortunate. But we are only on episode 9 of 19, so I do understand that they're going to make us wait a little bit longer before giving the couple their moment. Anyways, in comes Jasmine, and Logan shares that he has some news. Jasmine admits that she does as well, although she calls it a bit more of a surprise. She then invites someone else in and introduces the two of them to Owen, her new boyfriend. Logan is obviously hurt by this, but still goes on to say that he's happy for them. She then shares that they had the greatest time together at the dance and talked for hours afterwards. Owen says that they have a lot in common, and Logan breathlessly says that it sounds like a great match. Jasmine then says that she just wanted to share the big news before the two of them go to leave, but then she stops on her way, realizing that Logan had something that he wanted to share too. She then asks him what it was, but he tells her that it can wait as the two of them head out.
Oh, wait, you had news too.
Yeah, it can wait.
Now this just brings me right back to that fake dating episode in season 1 when the tables were reversed. I mean, this is practically the same scene with one of them about to confess their feelings, only to find out that the other has already moved on with someone else. It's like pretty much the exact same, right down to the other person remembering that the other was going to share something, but then them having to hold it back. And so cue the Jonas Brothers meme, because the tables have truly turned. And while I am somewhat happy for Jasmine, I can't help but be heartbroken for Logan. And like, it truly is just like the perfect case of them putting us through it. Right when Logan realizes his feelings for Jasmine, they couple her up instead. Now alone, Lindy apologizes to Logan, and he confesses that he just doesn't get it. He says that yesterday she was single and now she has a boyfriend, asking how she even met him. Lindy then realizes that she's at fault, as she's the one who introduced the two of them, but she tells him that there's no need to dwell on that part, gives him a hug, and then we end the episode. And now it is time for us to jump forward once again, as we don't get another Jogan episode until episode 16 of this season. And just to give you some perspective, like I said, we were previously at episode 9, so they really do make us wait for it, which I think I would have been more okay with if they could have given us some little moments like they did before with Jasmine, or just another filler platonic episode with the two of them. But we didn't get either of those things, and that just bugs me. Like, we deserve to see more pining Logan, and we didn't get that, and it's not fair. But anyways, now that we're at episode 16, let's talk about it, because it is one of my favorites. We start out with Jasmine asking Logan if he can teach her how to play the drums. But in doing so, he hallucinates her asking if he'll be her boyfriend if she breaks up with Owen. He excitedly says yes, and Jasmine is surprised that he's so eager to teach her how to play the drums. Logan is then confused by this, asking what she means, and she explains what she really asked. He then plays this off by saying that that's what he heard, and that he's just super excited about stuff lately. She then asks if he wants to go to Rumble Juice, and he repeats his excited response just to prove his point.
Well, what I wanted to know was, if I break up with Owen, will you be my boyfriend forever?
Yes, oh yes.
Wow, I didn't think you'd be that excited about teaching me to play the drums.
I'm sorry, what?
So what a great way to start out this episode. I love absolutely everything about this scene. His hallucination and excited response was just played so well, and I am so excited to get into these drum lessons. So Jasmine arrives at her first one and overhears Logan playing. She compliments him and asks if she's going to be able to do that after her first lesson. He then shares that his goal for today is actually for her to learn to stay on the stool without falling off. She looks at him in response to this, but he reassures her that it's harder than it seems. She then sits down without a problem and he is impressed, calling her a natural. The two of them then get started and he hands her the sticks, instructing her on how to hold them. They then start with a basic drum exercise called a paradiddle. Jazz jokes that shouldn't they start with one diddle before she attempts a pair, and he does a rim shot in response to this, which he says is something you do after someone makes a bad joke. So the whole ba-doom-tsh thing is what he did. Jazz then agrees that she deserved that, and then they go forward with the exercise. She tries to do it herself but isn't able to get the rhythm quite right, and this causes Logan to try to help her by putting his arms around her and guiding her hands. She asks how she's doing and he says that it couldn't be better, definitely referring more so to their embrace than to her drumming. Lindy then comes downstairs with a basket of laundry and sees them. She then fangirls a little bit to herself before running upstairs and leaving them alone.
Let's try it together.
Paradiddle, paradiddle.
Good. Now you say it.
Paradiddle, paradiddle, paradiddle. How is it?
Couldn't be better.
Paradiddle, paradiddle.
So obviously this is just perfection. And while it has been quite some time since Logan realized his feelings for Jasmine, at least as far as the show's timeline is concerned, this is really the first time that we get to see anything come from that, and I just feel like it couldn't have been better. I just wish it could have happened a little bit sooner and that we could have seen a little bit more of this era of them. But that being said, I also love the way that he's mouthing the exercise along as she's saying it. It just makes for such a nice intimate moment. And then of course Lindy coming downstairs and freaking out as well was a nice touch too. Moving on to their next lesson, we see Jasmine playing the drums while Logan watches. He then jokes that he just has to say that he's an amazing teacher. She calls him out for this and he says that he's only kidding. He then says that she's awesome and has improved a lot over these past 2 days. She thanks him and then asks if they can end the lesson a little early so that her and Owen can go to the library. He then says sure before asking how it's going between the two of them. Jazz says really well and that he's such a nice guy before Logan cuts her off, saying that they don't need to talk about him all day. He then instructs her to try the beat that they're working on again, but this time he's going to add in some drum fills so that she can get an idea as to where she'll be at in a few weeks. The two of them then go on to play the drums together, and afterwards Jazz celebrates how good they sounded. But then she accidentally falls off the stool in the process. Logan is quick to catch her in his arms, and then they share eye contact briefly before Owen enters, interrupting them. Jazz quickly gets up, explaining that she fell and Logan caught her. Owen looks between the two of them a little skeptic before Logan says that it's his fault. The two of them laugh and Owen calls this a good one.
Yes! Woo!
Owen, hey!
Hey!
I fell.
Off the stool and Logan caught me.
It's my fault. I thought she was ready to go without the seatbelt.
Now I just feel like this is miles better than what we saw previously with the whole Logan and Aaron stuff. I much prefer a case of happenstance with them just genuinely having a moment and then that moment getting interrupted. It just creates for so much more of like a high stakes moment, and I guess that you could argue that it's worse for the other person involved, but then it's like at least all of that is happening in front of his face instead of behind his back. I just feel like I like this a lot better in comparison to Logan realizing like, hey, my girlfriend really sucks and is super annoying, whereas this girl, she's a lot better. For some reason, this way just feels like a little bit more tasteful, even though it really probably isn't. Honestly, I'm just a sucker for a good falling and catching moment, and I do think that it is important for Owen to know about the history between Logan and Jasmine. So while this isn't the most ideal way for him to find out about it, I guess he was going to have to find out eventually, and so it's now or never. Anyways, Jasmine then thanks Logan for for the lesson and he tells her to keep practicing. She then smiles at him before leaving, and then after she's gone, he depressingly hits the cymbal on the drum kit. The next day, Owen asks Jasmine if there's something going on between her and Logan that he should know about. She says no before admitting that she did used to have a little bit of a crush on him, but then she calls this ancient history. She then jokes that she should know that because she's getting an A in ancient history. She then tells him not to worry as Logan is her friend and drum teacher, but that's all. Or is it, as maybe Jasmine's feelings aren't as dead and buried as she might think. So after school, Jasmine arrives for her drum lesson. Lindy calls Logan down, and while he's on his way, she asks her how the lessons are going. Jasmine says awesome and that Logan is an amazing teacher, and then Lindy admits that she never knew that she was interested in learning how to play the drums. And I'm really glad that she asked this question because it was something that I was wondering throughout the entirety of this episode. As they don't exactly make her motives clear, she just asks Logan to teach her. But Jasmine reveals that she always wanted to play an instrument and that Logan makes the drums look fun. Lindy then asks if that's the only reason why she's spending time with him. Jasmine is unsure as to what she means by this, and so Lindy points out that she did have a crush on him for quite some time, and says that it's hard to believe that those feelings just went away. This causes Jasmine to open up about the moment that they shared yesterday, but she says that it was nothing and that she's with Owen now.
I mean, you did have a crush on Logan for a pretty long time. It's hard to believe those feelings just went away.
Well, there was this one moment during our lesson yesterday where Logan and I...
What?
That was nothing. I'm with Owen now.
Now, I really like that we get this scene between her and Lindy, because it's been a while since her and Owen started dating and nobody has questioned her as to where her feelings for Logan went. And as Lindy points out, she was crushing on Logan for like a whole year, I believe. And I understand that she's probably just trying to move on with Owen, but just as Lindy said, it's kind of hard to believe that those feelings just vanished. And so I think it's safe to say that they are still there, they've just been pushed down very far. And so I feel like this conversation with Lindy was a great way for them to bring them back up to the surface. Anyways, Logan then comes downstairs and Lindy leaves the two of them alone. He then puts his hands on Jasmine's shoulders, telling her that today is the big day and asking her if she's ready. She asks what for, and he says for her first solo. But then, just like Logan did in the beginning of this episode, Jasmine instead hallucinates him telling her that he's in love with her and that he wants them to be together forever. She asks if he really means that, and he explains what he really said. She then laughs awkwardly before agreeing that she is. He then asks what she thought he said, but she said that it was exactly that.
Okay, this is a big day. Are you ready for this?
Ready for what?
I'm in love with you, and I want us to be together forever.
What? You really mean that?
Of course I do. You're totally ready for your first solo.
Right.
And just, oh my god, I feel like a broken record in regards to this episode, but of course I love this too. What a great way for them to confirm that Jasmine's feelings for Logan haven't gone away. It brings us right back to the beginning of this episode, and I love it because it almost feels like it comes to as much of a surprise to Jasmine as it does to us. It's almost like she's been denying her feelings for him for so long now that they've manifested into this hallucination. It almost makes more sense than when it happened to Logan, as it feels even more so out of her control. But with that, we have actually reached this season and unfortunately also this series finale, which also means that it's finally time for these two to get together. Now, this episode is all about Lindy wanting to raise money to save a dog shelter, and so the gang decides to organize a concert fundraiser. That night, we see Jasmine ignore a call from Owen. Delia asks if there's trouble in paradise, and Jasmine says that there isn't, it's just, and then she trails off. The girls then encourage her to continue, and so she asks if they remember her feelings that she had for Logan. She then admits that she's kind of been having them again. Delia asks what happened to Owen, and she reveals that she does still have feelings for him, and admits that she doesn't know what to do. And so she encourages her to break up with Owen, but Jasmine isn't too sure as she says that he's a great guy. Delia argues that Logan is a great guy too, and Jazz admits that she just doesn't know if Logan could like her in a girlfriend way. Lindy then asks if she did know how Logan felt, if that would make her decision easier, and Jasmine says maybe. This brings us to the following day where Lindy rushes to tell Logan the big news. She reveals that Jasmine likes him and he asks her to tell him exactly what she said. Lindy reveals that she said that she had feelings for him, and then Logan gets confused at the difference between having feelings for someone and liking someone, before he concludes that this is amazing. He then asks about Owen, and Lindy says that they are still together, but says that she's really confused and doesn't know what to do. Logan is aggravated by this as he feels as though now he has to challenge Owen to a duel, but then Lindy tells him that that's not how this works and he is relieved. She then encourages him to talk to Jasmine as if she knew that he liked her, then it might help her make up her mind.
Tell me exactly what she said.
She says she has feelings for you.
I thought you said that she likes me.
Oh, it's the same thing.
This is amazing. Wait, what about Owen?
They're still together, but Jazz is really confused and doesn't know what to do.
Oh, great. Now I'm gonna have to challenge Owen to a duel.
Now, this might be one of my favorite scenes from the second season. I absolutely love whenever the main character finds out from someone else that the one that they have feelings for does feel the same way about them. It just always makes for such a great moment. It gives me Anne and Gilbert vibes and also Luna and Mateo vibes and just makes for a great scene. But then this brings us to the following day at school where Logan goes to tell Jasmine how he feels. Unfortunately though, he then ends up seeing her and Owen hugging in the hallway. This causes him to think that maybe Lindy was wrong and he turns around to leave. Of course, we then cut to Jasmine though, who thanks Owen for being so understanding. She then tells him that it just doesn't feel right for the two of them to be together while she's having these feelings for Logan. He then tells her that he gets it, that nobody likes getting dumped, but he gets it. She then calls him a great guy and he goes to say the same back, but then says instead that she's right about that. I really like the fact that he doesn't say the same thing back to her after she calls him a great guy. He thinks about it but decides not to, which I feel like makes complete sense from his perspective, because the Jasmine that he got to know isn't exactly the best version of her. I mean, she got together with him all while having these feelings for her friend, and now she's breaking up with him because of those feelings. And so I like that this show was self-aware enough to include that line. But then I also found it to be very mature of Jasmine to call things off with Owen pretty soon after she realized that she was having feelings again for Logan. If there's one thing these two are good at, it's not cheating, which is great and honestly refreshing. And I do wonder if things would have been different if this series wasn't a Disney Channel one. Although I guess to be fair, Disney Channel isn't really above cheating either. Moving on, we then get to their benefit concert where the gang comes to find out week of that the band they booked has since broken up. This leads them to decide to form a band and play the show themselves. So they go on to perform a cover of Count on Me by Bruno Mars. Jasmine plays the bass even though she previously said that she didn't play any instruments, which is why she wanted to learn the drums to begin with, which I feel like is a little bit suspicious, but I guess you could argue that it was never really about the drums. But then I don't really like that connotation because at that point she was still in a relationship. So I don't know, but I feel like we can chalk this all up as just being a plot hole. But enough about that, as it is finally time for our big moment. So after the concert, Jasmine asks Logan if he needs any help packing up. He thanks her for the offer but says that he's got it. She then tells him that he was great tonight and he thanks her before saying the same back to her. He then turns, telling her that he didn't see Owen out there. She reveals that he didn't come and so he asks why, as he assumes that her boyfriend would want to see her perform. And so then she tells him that he's not her boyfriend anymore, causing him to drop the symbol that he was holding. She then explains further that they broke up, and he is confused as just yesterday he saw them hugging in the hall. She explains that they were actually saying goodbye and then takes a step forward. She then asks him if he would like to know why they broke up and he says that he would. She then smiles before saying that she told him that she couldn't stop thinking about someone else. Logan then deflates at this, thinking that she's referring to someone else, and then she lets him in on the fact that she's talking about him. They both laugh and then he concludes that he should tell her what he was going to tell her yesterday. He then reveals that he can't stop thinking about her either. And he tells her that he thinks that he's in love with her. And so she tells him that she thinks that he should put down the snare drum that he's holding. He does, and then the two of them hold hands. He then reaches up and pushes some hair out of her face before the two of them lean in for a kiss.
Jazz, I think I'm in love with you.
Then I think you should put down that snare drum.
Now, I just have to say, first of all, a huge prop to Jasmine for going directly to Logan and telling him all of this. Because although at this point we knew about his feelings for her, she still didn't. And so I just feel like it makes this moment even better, that after all of this time, she's finally going up to him and telling him how she feels. And it's actually intentional this time. I mean, I do think that she maybe had a little bit of an inkling that he did feel the same way, just because she is so confident in this moment, but I just think that it makes the scene even better, especially after watching her pine away over him after all this time. But the scene is not over yet. So after they pull back, they smile at one another, and then we pan to see their friends cheering them on. Jasmine notes that they approve, and again, I just love that they do. I just feel like the I Didn't Do It friend group is so healthy and supportive, and it's honestly refreshing to see. Now, I would say that it is unfortunate that Logan said that he loved her and Jasmine didn't say it back, but luckily we do get confirmation that she does if there was any doubt in the following scene. So we then see the gang outside. Delia calls Jasmine and Logan a couple, and the gang agrees to continue on as a band. Then, while making suggestions as to what they should call themselves, Jasmine suggests Jasmine loves Logan, and Logan suggests Logan loves Jasmine, as they both look at each other lovingly. And with that, we wrap up our love story on Jasmine and Logan. And while on one hand it's sad that we never got to see them together as a couple, on the other I am really happy that we at least got to see them get together and be endgame. And while I obviously have no idea as to what the writers would have had planned for a third season, I can rest easy knowing that at least we didn't have to watch them get together and then break up. Because we all know that that is just something that Disney Channel loves to do. And God forbid we got that third season and then they got canceled and we ended with them on a breakup or something. That would have been awful, and we already went through that with Channy, and I don't think I could ever go through that again. But yeah, that wraps up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This ship was chosen randomly based off of your guys' suggestions at the end of my Kickin' It video. So if you haven't gotten the chance to vote for what ship you want to see next, the link for that is in the description. But of course, you can always let me know in the comments down below as to what ship you'd like to see me cover next. I'm not exactly too sure who is next. I have a couple ideas, but it all kind of depends on like deadlines and sponsors and all of that stuff that you guys don't care about. Which, speaking of, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys for being so chill about the return of ads to this channel. I try to keep them as short as possible and time-stamped, but at the end of the day, as much as I love making videos for you guys, especially videos about ships, this is also my job, and so I have to make ends meet as well. And this is also probably just coming from me overthinking it, as nobody has said anything negative about me doing ads again, but I just wanted to thank you guys for being so chill and understanding, because even the fact that nobody said anything is positive in my regard. And so yeah, that's all from me. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you very, very soon. I really don't know what ship I'm doing next. Like, I know that I have that list now from you guys, and some ships are way more voted for than others. I don't know, I don't always think people's favorite ships are necessarily like what makes the most interesting video. So like part of me does kind of want to do a ship that I hate next, just because I feel like it's been too long since I was really able to like hate on a ship, but yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.